Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here today with Leah Koenig, author of the Jewish Cookbook. Leah, how are you?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Trying to keep busy in this stay-at-home time. Leah, let's start with what you're cooking these days.
So, like everybody, we are basically at home all the time. So we're cooking, 3 meals a day plus snacks for me, myself, my husband, and our two kids who are five
Yeah,
and one. So we actually it started driving us really crazy just to game plan. And I'm totally not somebody who usually does meal planning. That's not how my brain works, but we've
right.
started doing it. So now we have mac and cheese Monday and takeout Tuesday and today's salmon Thursday, which doesn't really, have the alliteration going on. But so we're doing a lot of very basic food, which is not super exciting since I'm a cookbook author. But I did make the Iraqi red rice and chicken from the Jewish cookbook for Shabbat the other
Nice.
night, though, and that felt special.
So I just got my copy of this beautiful tome. I can't wait to cook from it. I haven't cooked from it yet because it just arrived, but I am going to cook from it as soon as I
Yay!
can. Um, Leah, I'm so in awe of this, and I just want to geek out with you a little bit and ask you about it. Uh, how
Sure.
do you make something like this? And how do you go about it? How do you organize it? Let's start with that.
Sure. So this book is part of Phaidon, who's the publisher. It's part of Phaidon's kind of culinary Bible series. So the idea behind the book is to encapsulate all of Jewish cooking within, the front and back covers. Obviously, you can't really do that. There's, too many variations of dishes of,
Sure.
how every region and family did things differently. But that's the idea. So, they have Mexico, the cookbook, and the cookbook, and all these other sort of geographically bound um, and then the Jewish cookbook is a little bit different because obviously Jewish cuisine is global and it's not geographically bound to
Yeah.
one specific place. So it's the entirety of the cuisine, but it's really a global book. So yeah, that was the idea behind it. And in terms of organization, we went through different iterations of should we do it by holiday or by type of food, and we realized that we wanted the book to be really accessible to everybody regardless of where they fall on the familiarity with Jewish cuisine. So we abandoned any idea of doing holiday focused recipes. And so there are plenty of holiday recipes in there, but they're not organized that way. So you can kind of find them regardless of whether oh, you eat hamantash on Purim or you eat, brisket on Rosh Hashanah. So
So how long did it take you from complete start to finish?
I've been writing about food for about 12 years at this point, and in some ways, the book is a culmination of the years of research and other books that I've done and other articles and research that I've done. So in a way, it was 12 years in the making.
Yeah.
And I should say it also rests upon the scholarship that other people have done before me: Claudia Rodin, Joe Nathan, Gil Marks, all of the kind of greats of Jewish food anthropology. I definitely am riding their coattails and very much want to, acknowledge that I stand on the shoulders of giants.
Of
Um,
giants. Yeah.
but in terms of, the work that I did compiling recipes and testing recipes and writing everything, it was about 2 years to do all of that, and then an extra year of design and photos and all of the editing that goes in. So it's a three-year total process.
Wow. So were there any recipes that were particularly difficult to get right or that sort of took you through a loop?
Yeah. So for me, having a book where the recipes work is, I mean, it sounds super obvious. Of course, you'd want a cookbook where recipes work, but it doesn't always work that way. So
Yeah.
I, I wanted to make sure that I really gave all 425 recipes their proper vetting. And so,
Sure.
some I tested twice, and I was like, oh, these work. I've made latkes 1,800 times. I basically know I don't need to like reinvent the wheel.
Right.
And some took a lot longer. One that took a really long time was the marble cake.
Yeah.
Um, like an Ashkenazi, just like black and white marble cake. I really wanted it to have that super soft, spongy quality that you get in a Jewish bakery, and I just couldn't get it. I kept getting it would look beautiful, and you cut into it, and it would be kind of dry or like not firm enough. So I
Yeah.
really played around with that one, and I ended up doing something a little bit untraditional. I threw back to the 1980s when people started substituting applesauce for oil as a way of
Oh,
making
wow.
things like lower cal and lower fat. But I found that adding that little bit of like fruit puree actually made the cake a lot softer. So it wasn't like, it's not going to be exactly your Bubby's cake, but it tastes like it. So and I figured like applesauce is a Jewish enough ingredient that I could get away with that substitution.
I think applesauce is definitely fair game as a ingredient. So this cookbook in particular, as you said, is global. It has Ashkenazi recipes and recipes from all around the world. What's your relationship to Ashkenazi Jewish food?
So that's the cuisine that I grew up eating. My father's side is not Jewish, but they are German. So there was a lot of like German overlap cuisine. And my mom's side is Russian and Lithuanian Jewish. So I'm pretty much, Ashkenazi through and through in terms of like what I grew up eating.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, like, whatever. I'm like in Chicago. I grew up in the 1980s and 90s in Chicago. So like I ate plenty of, Wacky Mac and,
Yeah.
like Uncrustables and all that garbage. But,
Yeah.
but for holidays, my mom made amazing brisket. We would make Hamantaschen every Purim together. She makes amazing latkes. She made her own applesauce, which actually, speaking of applesauce, it's exactly her recipe in the book. It's one of the few recipes that I was like, I'm just gonna take that one as is. She has a really special way of making it where the skins on the apples, and she uses red apples, not red delicious, like a nice red apple. So the applesauce has this like beautiful rosy color
Mm.
that you don't get elsewhere, and it's super smooth and like cinnamony. It's really good. So yeah, like Ashkenazi cuisine was basically all I knew growing up. I mean, occasionally at our synagogue we would have like hummus or like Moroccan carrots with a Shabbat dinner, or like things that felt kind of from a different part of the cuisine. But it was really all I knew until much later.
So did working on these cookbooks and the process of that in any way change your relationship to Ashkenazi Jewish food? Did it give you a different kind of perspective of it in relation to other Jewish foodways, Sephardic, Mizrahi, from around the world, or
Yeah.
non-Jewish foodways, just other cuisines in general?
Yeah, I think it really necessarily just this, but this book and some of the other work that I've done has really upped my respect for Ashkenazi cuisine. I think Ashkenazi cuisine gets a bad rap sometimes for being bland and beige and super heavy and not that exciting. But I think there's been a lot, and our friends Jeff Yaskowitz and Liz Alpern of the
Yeah.
Quilteria, and who obviously helped with Yivo's course in a huge way. They have helped to teach me this, that Ashkenazi food is so much more nuanced than we give it credit for,
Sure.
and it's not just like it's not monolithic. Like Hungarian Jewish cuisine is different than Polish, is different than Ukrainian, and so
Yeah.
on. So really just understanding that there's a tapestry even within the Ashkenazi umbrella term. And also just that Ashkenazi cuisine can be so fresh, right? Like we
Right.
somehow have codified a lot of these dishes, like overcooked brisket and stuffed cabbage and kasha varnishkas and like all of these like kind of heavy rib sticking dishes, which are amazing and I love them.
Yeah.
But there is a whole tradition of summer foods, you know, not just pickles and borscht, but also, you know, like summer salads and, you know, cold cherry soup and like also, and sorrel, chav soup.
Mm,
So there's a whole world of kind of fresh dishes within Ashkenazi cuisine that I think I
yeah.
didn't really appreciate growing up.
Yeah. Totally. Um, okay. So if you were stranded on a deserted island and you could only
Uh-huh.
have one Jewish pastry to bake, what would it be?
That is a great question. I would have to say, you know, I'm like a big chocolate person in desserts. Like I would go for like a rich chocolate cake over an apple pie any day. But I think if I'm gonna go with one dessert, it would be my mom's apple cake.
Yeah.
Um, it's just to me like the way she makes it and the way a lot of people make it, it's just like heaps and heaps of apples with cinnamon and sugar, and then like not all that much batter. It like actually looks like the cake's not going to work out when you're making it because it's like a pretty thin layer of batter and then a huge mound of apples and then like just a little bit more of the cake. But somehow
Yeah.
magically in the oven, it like swells around the apples and it's so moist and so flavorful. And it's just got that like quintessential like cinnamon sugar appley thing going on. I think this conversation is somehow turning into just like a love fest for apples, but
I'm okay with it. I think we should
I'm
run with
okay.
it.
I'm feeling okay with it too. So
Apples
yeah.
are, very classic.
I also really like a dessert that doubles as breakfast, and I think apple cake is one of those desserts. So,
Mm,
like if you top it with yogurt instead of with ice cream or whipped cream, that you know, you're now you're talking.
yeah. So when you did the segments in the course seat at the table that we've been launching these past weeks, you did Hamantaschen, you did Rugelach, you had everyone just kind of collapsing on the floor after tasting these pastries. Um,
Mhm.
Now if for anyone who's watching this video in May, there's the Great Big Jewish Food Fest that's happening right now. Can you tell us a little bit about what you'll be doing, baking, cooking?
Sure. Sure. So, just you know, to back up a little bit, I had so much fun filming with Evo for the course, and you know, getting to like cook in this beautiful kitchen and have it filmed, and saw that the Hamantaschen video, I think the video, or maybe just the recipe, is on the Great Jewish Food Fest site under their Anytime
Yes.
content, which I
Yeah.
love. So people can check that out before it's even launched on the Evo site. So that's great. But for the Roman, sorry, excuse me, for the Great Big Jewish Food Festival, I'm doing a class on Roman Jewish cooking,
Right.
which is a passion of mine. I've traveled to Rome a lot and have spent a lot of time in the kind of historic Jewish ghetto neighborhood, and made
Mm.
some friends there. And so I'm doing sort of an homage to that cuisine, which is a really fascinating cuisine in its own right. They deep fry everything. um, because historically frying in olive oil was actually one of the cheapest ways to prepare food. Now that seems crazy, but you know, that used to be, olive oil is in abundance in Rome.
Sure.
So that's one class that I'm doing, and then I'm also doing a kind of tea time conversation with Claudia Roden, who I mentioned before. She's like one of my absolute heroes of Jewish food scholarship and food scholarship in general. Um, and I was actually supposed to fly to London later this month to interview her for something separately, and it was super heartbroken when the coronavirus basically took away my opportunity to meet one of
Yeah.
my greatest food heroes. So
Yeah.
I'm really, really, really grateful that kind of by this, you know, turn of events, I'm able to still connect with her, even if it's virtually. Yeah, I hope to meet her in person, but in the meantime.
Zoom will have to do. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Oh,
Um,
and the cool thing about that session is it's supposed to be a tea time, so everybody should come with a cup of tea, and also on the site where there's information about the session, there's a recipe for one of her cookies, these like little kind of rosewater perfumed almond balls, and they're really simple to make. They're no bake. They come together in
oh,
about 10 minutes. So I would recommend that everybody make them so they can nibble along.
okay, so I have to get my rose water ready for that.
Yeah, yeah. I guess you could use orange blossom water. You probably could just use a little bit of almond extract or vanilla if you don't have the right flavorings.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Leah, is there, I mean, since you've traveled the globe both physically and metaphorically in every way possible studying Jewish food ways, is there anything that you feel sort of unites all these food ways? They can be so diverse and so beautiful in their diversity. Is there anything that kind of seems like a
Yeah.
through line for you?
Yeah. I mean, like I sort of mentioned before, Jewish food is not geographically bound. So in some ways, the cuisines could not be more different, right? Like
Right.
if you look at what's on a Shabbat table in an Ethiopian or an Ethiopian Israeli family, and one from Mexico City, or one in like Alabama, like they're going to be completely different dinners on the table. So for me, what unites Jewish food, like the through line, is two things. One is, the kosher laws. Obviously, not everybody follows the kosher laws, but
Right.
Jewish food very much developed in relationship to them. So that's one piece. And the other piece is the reason you're sitting at the table in the first place, right? It's
Mm,
about family. It's about tradition. It's about religion. It's about celebration.
yeah.
And really, like that is the same. The feeling is the same at every dinner. So even though you're eating different foods, there's sort of an emotional and cultural through line that you can sit down at any Jewish table anywhere and feel like, oh, I've done this before, because that part, the emotions are the same,
Mm.
like the
Wow.
framework. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know we can't all come together physically right now, but I think that's a beautiful sentiment to stick with and hold on to, and we can connect virtually now as we're doing, as has been going on with the food festival happening right now. But also, people can check out the Great Big Jewish Food Festival at a later point, because there are lots of archival videos that are going to be available and already available, so you can check that out. We had so much fun. The feeling is very mutual. Baking with you, learning from you for Yivo's course, to see at the table. If anyone hasn't signed up yet, they can check out yivo.org/food. And I hope you'll check out Leah's book, which is phenomenal, the Jewish Cookbook, and many other cookbooks you've written. You're very prolific. And I hope you have a chance to chat again soon, Leah.
Me too. It has been super fun to kind of follow along in the course, and I've learned so much. Even though I do this work professionally, I've learned a huge amount from the sessions that I've watched. So thank you for putting together that just like unbelievable resource for people.
Thank you. It was a great team effort, and I hope we have a chance to make more food content in the future.
Agreed. Agreed.